At 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting of planning and zoning for Monday, March 16th, 2020. To order. First item of business is approval of the minutes from the February meeting. First, we'll just state that everyone's present except for Mr. Pease, Mr. Sandler, and Ms. Mitchell at 7 o'clock, 7:01. So everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? The only thing I saw was on the item for 498 East Trip Road. I think there was a discussion if it was worded approximately 4 acres, and that's supposed to be 5 acres.
Okay.
And also that I seconded it, and I believe Mr. Moss seconded that particular item. Just 2 minor nitpicky items.
Okay. We can, if you feel justified, we can approve with those corrections.
With those corrections, okay. So if we're good with that, I'd like a motion on the approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the minutes as with the changes stipulated for February 17th, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moss.
I approve. Second.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. We've had a motion and a second. All in favor? And all opposed? So it was 6-0 in favor. All right. Second item of business is to discuss, consider, and act upon a request by Thomas Vilbig to approve a site plan for Simon's Plumbing Services at or about 368 Long Creek Road.
Chairman and Commission, the subject property is located at 368 Long Creek Road. The applicant requests approval of a proposed site plan for the future development of a contractor shop for Simmons Plumbing LLC. The subject property is located within an industrial zone district. It's approximately 4 acres in size. Currently, the parcel of land in question is vacant and not platted, which, of course, prior to construction, the property will need to be platted, and that is on this agenda. The use, contractor shop is an allowed use within the industrial zoning district, and the individual building site will only encompass the northern half of the property. It sits next to what we have now as the existing Sunville Police Department, and will be designed in a similar nature. You see by the elevations here. Staff has reviewed the requests in accordance with Unified Development Ordinance regulations, and all requirements have been met.
Okay. I'd like to point out that Mr. Commissioner Sandler is now present. Anyone representing the applicant would like to speak, please come forward.
I would, sir.
Okay, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank y'all for having me. My name is Christopher Leon Simons. My father was Leon Simons. He's actually the one that built your building that your police department is living in now. And they love that. And I'm trying to duplicate that next door. He passed away 2 years ago. And so I just want to come home. I just want all the city council to know I just want to come home, and I would appreciate it if you'd let me. So God bless y'all, and that's all I got to say.
Any questions of the applicant?
I'll just note with 2 members absent, every member is available to vote.
Okay, so now I have to open up the public portion of this hearing. Anyone would like to come to be heard, please step forward. State your name and address for the record. Okay, as it appears there are none, we'll close the public portion of this agenda item and open it up to discussion amongst the board. I see we're sitting right next to the FedEx,
Yes.
major FedEx. And what's to, is that FedEx to the north also? Or is that another, just another?
Directly across this, from this property is actually Public Works Department, our town of Sunnyvale Public Works.
Oh, okay, okay. And in the, this view to the north and slightly to the east is a house that's actually zoned SF1, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And just a correction, I'm sorry, that's lineage that's directly to the north. I was associating this property with the DSO building, but Public Works is right to the right
Oh, yeah,
there.
the animal rescue.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, okay. All right. All right. Questions, concerns? Commission? Okay, I'll consider a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a recommendation to approve the site plan for the Simon's Plumbing Services at or about 368 Long Creek Road as described in this recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Moss.
I'll second it.
Second? Okay, second, Mr. Childers. So let's take a vote to approve. All in favor of approval? Looks like all members approval, none opposed. So the item passes. I guess that's 7-0.
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the same applicant, same location for a minor plat for the Simmons Building, Simmons Plumbing Services at or about 368 Long Creek Road.
Yes, sir. As you noted, this is in line with the site plan. Of course, we need to plat the property prior to construction. Staff has reviewed, the town engineer has reviewed the application, and all comments have been addressed. Staff recommends approval.
Okay. Applicant have anything to add? Or, no, nothing else? Okay. All right. We'll open it up to the public hearing portion of this item. Anyone who wants to be heard, please step forward. And as there are none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing on this item and open for discussion amongst commissioners. This is a site plan for the previous item. Pretty straightforward. Questions or concerns or motions?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the Long Creek Addition minor plat for the Simon's Plumbing Services at or about 368 Long Creek Road.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Second.
Second, Mr. Wood. All right, we have a motion for approval and a vote for approval. All four, please raise your hand. Looks like it's 7-4 and 0 opposed. Item passes 7-0 unanimously. All right.
God bless y'all.
Next item on the agenda, discuss, consider, and act upon a request by Terry Bedford to approve a replat of the Baker's Rib Addition for Kearney's Feed Yard at or about 3602 North Beltline Road. Mr. Jackson.
Commission. The property received a site plan and plat approval in 2018 for the Kearney's Feed Yard Restaurant. The property owner has repurchased the abutting property to the north for additional parking for the business. They've actually already started and possibly completed the construction on that, and this is just following up to make certain that that is a part of his property now. We will be receiving a replat for the property to the north, just in accordance with state law. Any sale of property, exchange of property should be recorded in a plat in this situation. So, and we should see that probably next month.
Okay. All right. Do we have an applicant who wishes to speak on this subject? Okay, I see none.
I don't see an issue moving forward with this. I spoke with the applicant, Ms. Bedford, earlier today. I thought she was going to be here, but
I actually drove through the parking lot Sunday, and it was new concrete was already poured, so, and it looked like it's, an obvious good addition to the parking lot for the layout of the parking lot to have that paved.
right.
All right, so we'll open this up to the public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard, please come forward. As there are none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing and open for discussion. Commissioners? I don't know if
Rashad, should this had already been approved before the concrete was poured?
Yes,
Have you any idea what the snafu was on that?
just getting started ahead of putting that, what do you call it?
Cart, whatever.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just trying to make it right now.
Yes.
Well, I drove past it too, and I looked out, and I said, golly, it's already done, so I hadn't read this review. Okay, thanks.
As part of the approval of the inspections and whatnot, this was a criteria that the plat be submitted. So it was submitted last month, and of course, it's not here until the following month, which is now.
Well, definitely more parking was needed, no question about that.
Yeah.
yes, definitely an addition. Needed addition to the property as they're quite busy. All right, any further discussion? We hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend Terry Bedford to approve a replat of the Baker's Rib addition for Kearney's Feed Yard at or about 3602 North Beltline Road.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Second, Mr. Moss. All right, vote for approval. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Passes 7-0 unanimously. And the last item on the agenda, public hearing to consider and act upon a request by Eric Brown to approve ordinance 20-06, an ordinance amending the Town Unified Development Ordinance 17-09, duly passed by the Town Council on March 26, 2018, as amended from time to time, so as to add contractor shop and contractor storage yard land use classifications as allowed uses with local retail zoning districts, specifically amending section 3.04.03 use chart, as well as any other associated sections. Mr. Mayor.
Chairman, Commission, staff received a request for a use chart classification text amendment. Particular uses in question are contractor shop and contractor storage yard. The request stems from a current contractor shop that is located in a local retail zoning district along the Beltline corridor. The uses located in the existing portion of the building toward the rear. The applicant would like to remain in the location and has chosen to request a text amendment to allow his use to remain in that location. The applicant has requested the uses contractor shop, contractor storage yard to be allowed with a specific use designation. If this were to be approved, he would follow up with the official submittal for an SUD. The current use chart requires a specific use designation in most zoning districts, except for the industrial zoning district for this particular use. The uses are currently not allowed in the local retail zoning district. The subject uses have not been allowed in local retail since the early 2000s, based on staff's research of old records. The one thing to consider with this proposal is the associated outside storage, but I will note, being that it would be an SUD, there are special conditions that can be imposed for each one that you approve. So based on the situation, based on the location, you can approve special conditions tied to that use. And of course, the outside storage would need to abide by the standard 20% of the total lot area, and it shall be screened based on our Unified Development Ordinance regulations either way. So right now, the request is for this to be allowed in the local retail zoning district with an SUD.
And on the zoning map, there we go, just one circle in red or the two
Yes.
local retail, what would be, if this would apply to.
Correct. Primary areas of local retail zoning is along Beltline, and we have a small area here in Town Center, which, you know, the future land use map calls for this area to eventually be a town center zoned area. So this should change. I would think it will likely change once we finalize the future plans for the area with the downtown committee and however they choose to move forward. I think a consultant may be selected here pretty soon, based on funding. I can't say for certain, but I would recommend during that process that a zone change be made and specific criteria for the town center district be put in place, different specific standards be put in place to allow for this area to be zoned town center district as opposed to local retail. And we could keep local retail along Beltline the way it should be.
I guess as we get closer to possibly having a town center build construction in that town center, then probably look at that
Yes,
a little more in depth.
yes.
And this is specifically, this is the dermatology, 2505 North Beltline.
Well, there's a,
Dermatology,
yes, that building has several uses in it. The dermatologist is in the front half, and then in the rear is what we're talking about. You really can't even see it from,
yeah, I went to Google. Google actually drove up in there and got Google
really.
Maps pictures from 2018, but it's very shielded by trees and
And then the creek runs to the rear, so it's,
yeah.
Now, keep in mind, this change isn't for that specific location. He'll have to come in after the fact. This will open it up for SUD in all locations. That being said, there are specific conditions that can be applied for each location. Every person would have to come in and request approval for a contractor shop in local retail zoning, just like highway commercial, just like general business.
okay, so if I understand this correctly, if this is a SUD is approved, then every business in that area zone local retail can apply for the same, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, this actually is not for any particular property, it's for the
Yeah.
local retail.
Yes.
To add contractor shop and contractor storage yard as a use that would require an SUD come through planning zoning to be approved.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
But with this use, was this, when this place was built, was it complying at the time, or was it not in compliance when it was built?
It was not, from my knowledge, it was not in compliance. The tenant was put in the location, signed the lease without staff being made aware.
Okay.
So I think once the property was sold, or the front user was transitioned from, now it's a dermatologist, staff went over there and did an inspection and found the contractor shop back there. But the representative, Mr. Mr. Fopp can speak to how long they've been there.
Okay, please, representative for this item, please step forward, state your name, address. Please.
Hi, Honorable Chairman and Honorable Commissioners. My name is Jim Fopp, and I reside at 228 Mansfield Boulevard here in Sunnyvale, Texas, and I'm here tonight representing Mr. Eric Brim, who couldn't be here. Eric is a 30-year citizen of Sunnyvale, lives on Barnes Bridge, and has owned this structure since 2005. The building's been on the tax roll since 1978, and it's, in fact, always been a multi-use facility. The front end, until recently, as Mr. Klein talked about, was a dermatology group. That dermatology group moved out and it was replaced by a chiropractic group. When that chiropractic group came in, it was discovered that the contractor who is in the back, taking the smallest portion of the building, was not authorized, and that's what led to this process. The contractor is a fencing and remodeling contractor, has no outside storage, and does store some materials inside, which takes him over the legal threshold for retail. The middle part of the building is unoccupied right now. It's a suite of offices that has been occupied in the past. Based on discussions with the staff and issues they've had in the past with this corridor on Beltline, this seems to be a very unique situation to the Beltline corridor. There's about 3, maybe 4 structures on the, the west side?
Yes.
Yeah, and this is one of them. The one next door used to be a multi-use structure, and now it's single use. And then down the street to the north, you have the 2-story building that has multiple uses there. And this sort of situation has come up before the staff, and it's not been resolved. Mr. Brim fully realizes that if you recommend approval and the council does approve this step, that he has to come back and show you what he wants to do and what is being done there, and is subject to approval for the SU.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Mr. Faulkner, so is there another means by which we could remedy the situation that you're describing as opposed to
Opening it up?
Opening it up.
Yeah, I was the one, and I referred to that in my letter. We could ask for a specific change for this property, which Mr. Brim and I recommended he not do this, ask for special consideration for his property only, because that would create a sort of a spot zoning and approval situation, which would put the staff in a bit of a bind, and the town perhaps in a bit of a bind.
The latter, you're saying?
Yes. So that's why we went for the broader, recognizing that you as a recommending body and the council as approving body can put the restrictions on an issue that it's applied for that they want to grant.
Are there other reasons or considerations we should look to for purposes of opening it up, more than whether it's a spot consideration or amending the actual UDO for purposes of this particular?
The only reason I can really give you, Josh, is that in talking to the staff, this is a frequent or a rather frequent situation for these properties on Beltline, given their use and given their age. This property is 42 years old and was built and in place before we even had a comprehensive plan in the town. So it's one of those that tends to kind of fall between the cracks. It probably hasn't been dealt with. And like the parking lot at Kearney's, we have a guy in there that shouldn't be in there because he wasn't approved, and we're trying to find a reasonable way for Mr. Brim to keep him as a tenant. But in the scope of the long-term Sunnyvale success, he doesn't want to make it just a unique situation for him.
But doesn't the explanation you just gave actually justify the unique situation that we're discussing?
I guess it depends on where he's sitting.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
Kate, how long has that tenant been there, and what is he storing?
King, I don't know how long he's been there. He's been there more than several years. And what he stores inside the facility is fencing material, boards and chain link. There's no outside storage. There's no heavy vehicles or anything in there. He's got a secured fence with a card key and everything else, but there's nothing major in there.
Okay. But he's probably been there a long time.
He's been there at least 5 years.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then I'll open it up to the public. portion of this hearing. Discussion amongst the commission.
I just want to make sure I understand, whatever we approve right now, we will still be able to control or have input as to what the final, I don't want to say final product, but what is actually approved and constructed or put in place.
Yes, we're just approving 2 new designations within the local retail, not specifically for this property, but for the local retail. And as I understand it, the applicant will come back and request an SUD for one or both of those. I guess it would be both, since he's storing it inside and out. And my understanding that he's not going to change, he just wants to continue doing business legally. I mean, get it
Legally.
approved legally, right, get in compliance,
Yes.
so to speak. Okay.
And I'm sorry, I might have not made it clear, there is no outside storage at all, and there's no intention or no request.
Oh, okay.
There won't be if it moves forward.
Okay. So he just will be requesting a contractor's shop portion. Okay. All right.
Rashad, did the staff actually have a recommendation to approve or not approve, or just if we approve it?
If we approve it, I believe this is the most appropriate way to approve it, is with an SUD requirement.
But there's not a specific.
Yeah, why doesn't the staff have a recommendation?
Well, I know that this is one thing that was considered when we went through the comprehensive plan update, and specifically they went through each classification. So this was considered and decided against. But we have a unique situation, and this is a request that's been made by an applicant. So as far as the recommendation is concerned, if we do allow it, that's my recommendation. I think the SUD would be the best approach. I don't see it being detrimental because primarily you can impose specific conditions with that SUD. You could almost impose, if you don't feel like it's appropriate in a specific location, you have the right to say no due to traffic, or it may be detrimental to surrounding properties, however you see it.
And, well, the issue about appropriateness has already been decided. The question would be redeciding it by changing what's already in the UDO route, really, with respect to, or the zoning ordinances, really, with respect to what's an SUD and what's not for local retail, right?
For retail zoned area, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there any other means by which the applicant could get what they want by us without us having to change the zoning ordinance?
I'm unaware of any. When you mentioned that specific conditions primarily for that specific property, we're talking about a zone change, which in all legalities is illegal. That's spot zoning. The whole entire area is zoned local retail, so if you wanted to change this zoning to general business or some other zoning, it would need to be abutted by similar zoning. So I don't know of any other way to allow this use to continue outside of amending the land use classification.
And does the staff recommend that we change the zoning ordinance at this time?
Like I said, I don't see anything detrimental based on the fact that it will be an SUD. I wouldn't recommend it being allowed by right, but noting that all these other uses outside of, all these other zoning districts outside of the industrial zoning district require SUD, I don't see how it wouldn't be treated any differently. I do recommend eventually changing the town center area zone local retail to town center zone district once we flesh out what we really want in this area. That way, I couldn't see these type of uses around the town center area. It just wouldn't correlate with the future plans for the area.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
I just have a little bit of concern that the town apparently considered this just 2 years ago and decided they didn't want that. So it's not that long ago.
Says here the subject uses were allowed in local retail zoning prior to 2000.
That is our assumption. I've looked at old COs for the general area. Unfortunately, documentation was not great. So the COs that I saw didn't note the specific uses on the COs, but there were some uses that you could consider contractors. I don't believe they had outside storage at all. We have another property owner to the north that Mr. Falk was speaking to, and they don't necessarily have any users right now, but they have said they renovated a portion of their property or one of the buildings so they could accommodate these type of users and spent quite a bit of money. I noted that this was on the agenda for tonight, and they plan on being present. They were more for it needed to be allowed by right, though. I explained that this is probably a use that would need to be considered by P&Z and council each time that it has to be approved. And I'm not certain if he's in the audience or not, but that's the only other issue that I know of.
I mean, I guess the only thing I'm struggling with is I'm just trying to find a justifiable reason to change what we already went through with respect to the plan and the UDO and the like, and the zoning ordinances for that matter.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brett is open to any suggestions or alternatives. This seemed to be the best path as discussed with staff, based not only on this property, but the other ones that Rashad is referring to.
So for instance, the middle of this property, someone wanted to lease it and say, open for plumbing supply, store, irrigation valves and things. They would have to get a SUV for a contractor's shop, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And that would seem to me to be appropriate for this particular area.
Yeah, I guess I feel more comfortable with you is here to talk about their thoughts. I don't know if I feel particularly comfortable voting to change it at this point.
And it also has a local retail over near the lake area, it looks like as well.
Actually, that's the Lake Zone District. I think it's, that's a separate zone.
Oh, lakefront, okay.
Yeah,
I see.
that's like-
Sorry about that, yeah.
Slightly different shade of
Yep.
pink. Yeah.
And so, is there a policy reason that we would change it, or, I mean, what could we point to justify why we would do it?
I think it really comes down to the commission's view or vision for the local retail zoning district. What is the long-term view for the zoning district? I can't say that we'll be, bombarded by these type of requests. There's already existing buildings over there that would accommodate these type of uses. The new construction, I wouldn't foresee anybody coming in and wanting to do this type of use along Beltline.
Well, in that same local retail, we have a salon elites.
Salon Elite,
So if someone wanted to open up a beauty supply shop next door to them, they would have to require a contractor shop. Just
no,
No,
not for like beauty supply. That's retail, wholesale.
retail wholesale.
This is truly a construction-related facility. I actually have the,
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, because of that, that's why I struggle with it, because it doesn't seem like it truly fits
in local retail.
local retail.
Based on the definition of local retail, yes, I would agree. But again, we're just trying to figure out a way to resolve an issue
Okay.
and still have some purview over each one that comes in, or if they come in.
Okay.
Okay? All right, well,
So if this were approved, any area that we have zoned, local retail, would have the option to come in and ask for the same SUD, right?
Yes.
Whereas now, that option does not exist. Well, I guess it does exist, but there's no precedent for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. May I ask a question?
yes, sir.
Is it possible to limit it to existing structures in the town as of a certain date? Because that's really the issue here. We've got structures that predate any zoning influence or governance by the town that we're trying to deal with.
And see, this is something that the property to the north, we actually had a dispute with the property owner. He stated his zoning was general business, which is why he believed his uses should be allowed. Because I believe at one point in general business, contractor shop was allowed by right. I researched our zoning and did not find that along Beltline, the properties were ever zoned general business. So I looked at the COs, and the COs, certificate of occupancies, didn't back up or were, again, documented incorrectly. Our town manager reached out to our legal staff to get some background on the situation. And we still weren't able to come to a conclusion outside of adding these proposed uses, at this point, adding these proposed uses to local retail and allowing P&Z and council to approve them as they come in. I would have to look and speak with our legal staff to see if it could be something that is, that may be a more additional text amendment to say contractor shop.
Do we need to make a motion to not approve something, or do we just make, how do we do that?
In regards to this,
Yeah.
if you wanted to table it, you can table it.
I was just going to recommend or request that so that I can work with staff and see if we can, I understand your dilemma and your concerns very well.
Yeah, I'm happy to support tabling. I mean, I want everyone to get what they need out of public government.
Give us
obviously.
another month,
Government.
let's see what we can do to work this out from a legal standpoint that perhaps you can embrace with a little more fondness.
Sure. I'll make a motion, Terry.
Thank you.
I believe, and once we table it, I think addressing the age of the structure might be the best approach.
Do you want us to deny the current application and then encourage them to resubmit with them?
I would table it and direct them to work with staff, and I'll reach out to our legal team.
Okay. I'll make
So
a motion.
requesting a motion.
Yeah.
Your motion is to table
To table the current application.
current application, so that, okay, motion is to table the current application. All in favor of table? Raise your hand. All opposed? No. Okay, so vote 7-0 to table the application.
And that'll be tabled to the next
to the
meeting.
next meeting.
Correct.
Good? All right. All right, that concludes all our agenda items. I'll take a motion to conclude the meeting.
I'll make that motion as well, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Someone make a motion, second?
Second.
Do we get, by the way,
Mr.
sorry, I just want, on the prior motion, do we get a second motion to table?
Yes, Mr. Oakford seconded?
Pardon me. Excuse me.
Okay, yeah, and it was approved 7-0. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Sandler and seconded by Mr. Childers. All right? Okay, all for the motion? 7-0 to adjourn. So it is 7:40 and Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is adjourned for tonight. Thank you. Special time.
You've been staying safe? Have you been staying safe? Me too.
I'm trying my best.
I'm trying not to have to give up the gym.
that's done, we'll go to Jordan, Dallas. You good with it, folks?
Mine has to close, mine is closed.